Welcome back, everyone, to the Council for Maintenance podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we are a show that takes a behind-the-scenes look into the gritty, non-glamorous life of aircraft maintenance. We share some laughs, impart some wisdom, all in hopes of giving you that split seconds relief in your day that will hopefully prevent a mishap. My name is Six.
I'm MVP.
And our third host, Shoreline, is here again in the back, silently monitoring our audio and making sure our faces stay fit for radio. So I was talking with my friend Brian at the Finding Nemo surf fishing podcast. He's back in the swing of things with aviation, doing maintenance control like things. And he mentioned an incident where his site's maintenance server crashed. And so they had to revert back to paper logbooks. And this reminded me of a time you and I, MVP, when we were at this one site and our maintenance server crashed for reasons unknown. And this one site didn't have paper backups to fall back on. And I was just utterly blown away by that fact. Like, why not? we got planes that go up in the air and we are 100% electronic, like zero papers, none whatsoever. So what do we do now? And they just kind of stared at me, or stared at myself and MVP with just blank deer in the headlights. I'm like, okay, so let's do this, right? And it's weird having to direct people how to do things when they're so used to just kind of shutting down when something breaks and not trying to figure out a solution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I mean, aviation is all about redundancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was no redundancy there. Oh,
Yeah.
well, when's the last time you backed up? Well, we backed up 5 hours ago. Well, we've done a lot of maintenance in the last 5 hours. Yeah, but our process says we only have to do it twice a shift. Cool. So we just lost 5 hours worth of maintenance. Great. Pull out the paper logbooks. Funny thing about that, Chief. We don't have paper logbooks.
What?
I guess you better shit out a logbook pretty quick then. Put on your crafting skills together and put that in the binder for me ASAPidly.
Yeah. And yeah, and that was a fiasco in itself. Secondly, is I was talking to a few AMT friends who do commercial airlines and, read some of the larger commercial airline stuff. And it was made apparent to me that they don't use electronic logbooks or any type of online maintenance server. So it may have been just the outfits that myself and MVP were been a part of, but that also likewise blew me away. Like, there are shops and outfits, especially in major commercial shops, that still operate on paper-only maintenance. So I would like to take that time, to talk about, like electronic tech logbooks or, electronic aircraft logbooks. Some of the pros and cons of having worked with such a centralized system, and just how likely is this going to happen to you, or how likely is this whole system going to come to you? So as we kind of alluded to before, like with maintenance logbooks or electronic logbooks, I'm blown away that there's places out there that still don't use them. Like, I could understand if it's like general aviation stuff, like someone's garage or someone's like privately owned Cessna, and they live in somewhere in the Midwest that's not very tech savvy or technologically connected. But for larger companies or larger outfits, I would assume, I did assume that was a thing. Like, they knew about it and they've been doing it. So I was pretty blown away that that's not a thing. And from MVP and I's experience, like, having a centralized maintenance system is when it's working. Let me caveat with that. When it's working, it's almost headache free. Like, you can really get down into the most minute thing and know exactly what's going on with this plane. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, what are some of the benefits I can give with like having online maintenance server or electronic technical logs or electronic logbooks is, as I alluded before, for one, it's control. Like paper based only, there's high chances of things getting missed. There's high chance of things being illegible. Papers ripping, papers getting greasy, people losing the logbook, or people not annotating the maintenance correctly, or any of those combinations. So having an electronic logbook or even an electronic database where all this can get fed into, it captures all the maintenance as it happens, and depending on the system, it can be accessed anywhere that system is plugged into. That gives you the ability to see what's happening real time as it's happening, depending on the connectivity of that server. It allows you to track the hours being worked. It allows you to track how many hours that is left until the next due maintenance interval. So it gives you a way to like really plan things as far as maintenance concerned. So for guys who are sitting in the maintenance control center or operations control center or any whatever the synonym for that, it's a godsend almost. Like I know what's going on with every plane at any moment in time, and I know what the status is real time. Now, depending on what system it is, it can be like immediate, or it can take a little bit. Like you have to sign some stuff, or you got to plug it into the master server, or whatever the case may be. But it's still relatively fast, and you can dig through this thing and figure out pretty much anything you want with this. So,
and you can do so from any location, right? So depending on the nature of what you're working on, right? If it's all unclassified, you can access anywhere on the flight line or the hangars, or globally if you have internet access, to check historical records, archives, update main databases, all that stuff. It's real time, right? So if Six is in Afghanistan, he just releases a helo back to flight, I'll get that in San Diego almost instantaneous. The minute he hits, he greens up the aircraft, I get that notification back real time in my location.
Yeah. And then say, depending on what the system is, like let's give an example of this one outfit we were at. They were using iPads as their air quotes electronic logbook. Now, imagine like an iPad. Like if you have apps on this thing that ties into the maintenance of a specific plane, you can have the servicing information. You can have the like any defects or deferred maintenance. That's a big one, I think, right there is deferred maintenance. Any pertinent forms, any pertinent alerts that may be coming up, right? And all this can just be pushed either from the main server where the iPads plug into or whatever, or if it's like an online thing and they're all connected to it, you just got to push it from the main system, like say, for instance, in the maintenance control center or whatever, and then all of them get it, right? So it's not like having to get a physical runner to go plane hopping between all the different shops and tell people like, hey, this bulletin just dropped, or hey, this aircraft got pulled off the schedule, or whatever the case may be, right? It's like instantaneous. So like the ease of use of this stuff, when it's working and when it's implemented, it can really save some time and just really make the accuracy of stuff just that much more efficient. So let's say that's like one of the pluses. And then there's also the savings bit of it, right? There's going to be some upfront costs to set it up. I'm not going to lie. We've had to implement a system once that costed us a whole couple months worth of stuff. But when it was once it's fully set up and once it's geared and we know this works and the implementation process figures itself out, the amount of time you're saving from cost wise to just maintain those networks, it's going to save up a lot as compared to paper. because you got to have printers, you got to have the paper itself, you got to have stamps, like physical stamps, or you got to have a roster of people who can physically sign off said papers. You got to have a library to store all this stuff.
Right. Then you got to, if you're, from my experience, right, working in several FBOs, there has to be a fax machine available to fax all the copies of the papers back to maintenance control so they can review them, archive them in their system while you wait for them to green up the jet. And then also you have to print copies of it for your own archives, right, for your work orders. Mm-hmm. It's just insane, the amount of time, efforts, whereas let's say, especially with like the corporate jets, right, if I'm sitting on a ramp in Texas working a jet and you just heard me say, we got to fax, not even email in some cases, still have to fax these documents back to wherever the operator is located. Whereas if I just had the iPad or a computer and I could log into that system and type in what I did to that aircraft, hit save, and that maintenance control and wherever that operator is located is going to get those updates real time and can review it then, right? It's so much faster than trying to fax something like we're in the 90s.
Yeah. And like I was mentioning too, like with the iPad stuff. Nowadays, man, like I can have an iPad somewhere in the US and I can connect instantly to somebody in freaking New Zealand. Let's say that. So and say like the plane is transitioning from one to the next. I don't have to have like a physical paper logbook to go with the plane so I know exactly what's going on. Like the maintenance or any of the pertinent information can basically just be like more or less email sent or whatever that messaging is between from iPads to the next, iMessages or whatever the hell. And it can send it within seconds across the world, before that plane even gets there. And we have full information. We know what we're going to need to do. We have a lot of lead time to plan for any down maintenance before the plane even arrives to its destination.
Right. And that's the big benefit of the electronic systems is, especially if you have aircraft that are flying a lot and going to multiple locations. So big airliners, all those kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it just makes it more difficult to have to carry books the whole way and do what you got to do.
Right. And they say, like, especially when you're bouncing from one place to the next, things get lost, things get missed, or what applies to one station doesn't apply to the other. There's a whole lot of logistics points of failure. Let's say that if you were to lug them physically, it's working now. Don't get me wrong. Like they work, right? But we're picking up a lot of cost for making that happen, right?
Right. Well, and here's another thing, right? Ease of reading, the legible, being legible. I know, we're all professionals, but not all of us have the best handwriting. And yeah. I've seen some handwriting in logbooks that you're going, I don't know what the hell this person did. I can't read this crap. So having electronic eliminates the poor penmanship of some of our peers.
You know what else? Now that you mentioned the penmanship about write-ups, as far as like electronic logbooks, is some of them have like default sign-off criteria. You know what I mean? Like there's already a pre-built how do I say verbiage for certain sign-offs.
Right. For some of your common maintenance actions, right? You're always pulling off this panel for post-flight, pre-flight inspections. You're always servicing struts. You're always servicing tires. You're always servicing fluids, whatever. And so you can, like you said, you can pre-build, pre-populate, I guess, those fields with a standard write-up. So as you were alluding to earlier, you can say you already know what you have to do before the aircraft hits the ground. So control can load in those pre-populated things for whatever maintenance action is coming up. And all you have to do is sign off with what you did.
Right. And then like picture that too. Like when you have that much of a lead time between planned intervals, you you have like better knowledge of those expected intervals. So that means like parts and other resources are going to be however long it takes for you to get them. You now have that extra lead to get them, right? And then also depending on certain systems that these electronic logbooks or these electronic maintenance servers have, they almost talk to each other, so to speak. Like some systems, they're very integrated. They communicate back and forth. So like say I have a 400-hour inspection coming due soon, and you could put parts on order from that system, and it immediately forwards that information, translates it into whatever part system that this other place is using, and they put those on order, and they send you like the shipping information or whatever the lead time is for that part to get there, instead of having the physical logbook there, writing a bill of lading or a bill of material, send that, fax that, or have a runner send it over to whatever supply system. They take this piece of paper, look at your hieroglyphics of whatever it is you said, translate it into the part system, forward that off, and it repeats the cycle over and over again until finally it shows up. And hopefully it's the right one based on all these potential points of failure. Like getting sent to the wrong hangar, or they send the wrong part because they couldn't read a -1 instead of a -5 or something like that because of crappy handwriting or something like that.
Right. And then as your leadership's going through checking statuses and seeing where you're at, and they say, oh man, MVP's out there wiping the panel off. Why isn't he getting the maintenance done? Let me pull up the logbook and see what's going on. Oh, he's got parts on order. He's waiting parts right now. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the part numbers are auto loaded into the system. So again, you removing the error of, or if there is an error in the input of the part number, it didn't come from you.
Yes.
And then what's kind of nice is that, like, if I remove a part number, serial number, whatever, now that I've removed it and deemed it bad, some computer systems will flag it. So, like, say I do it at one location, I remove this part, but 6 tries to go type in that part number, serial number on an aircraft he's working in a different location, it won't allow him.
Yes.
Because it's saying, no, we're aware that this part was removed because of high time XYZ, whatever the reason, right? Failed. You can't be installing that part here when it was just removed here for this reason.
Yes, that's another big one too. And I see that as a big choke point, or a point of failure with paper, because sometimes the part's removed before the paperwork catches up to it. It's just the nature of the beast. So say someone took the part off, hung it on the shelf, and the paperwork is lagging for however long it takes for it to get there, however long that distance is. Someone else could be like, oh, I need this part. Oh, look, there's a spare one on the shelf, and there's no tags whatsoever, or there's no paperwork that says it's bad. This person goes and hangs it, and he doesn't realize it's bad until he goes to do an operations check. Or someone realizes the part on the shelf is missing, and oh, by the way, here's the bad paperwork, or the do not use tag, that was supposed to have been attached to the part. That's kind of an extreme example, but it has happened. And sometimes guys don't realize that they hung a bad part or they installed a bad part until they go do a final check on this thing, and then either it doesn't work or it smokes itself. So having this as an electronic means, like you can electronically install, remove and install, or remove and deem bad, and have this information real time as it's happening. That's another check in the box, or check what do you call it? Checks and balance for maintenance, and that helps a lot, especially when like with the ever chaotic world that's our life. Like sometimes like the communication piece, it's kind of strung out. It doesn't break it's not fully broken, but it lags sometimes. And that's when things are running perfect. So imagine, like a simple oops can have cascading effects. Now, one of the cons of having an electronic maintenance server or electronic logbooks, we kind of alluded to this before, is the connectivity problem. or like say in the case of a crash, if your server is 100% electronic, no paper backups, no contingency plan, and it crashes, then you're kind of at a standstill. Like, we don't know what we did, we don't know where we are. What the hell do we do? Or like in case of like I mentioned earlier, when in our previous example, when there was no paper backups whatsoever, and I think I just said that. But anyways, like the cons of this is that connectivity. That's probably like one of the biggest cons, is if your connectivity is not fully set up or if it's intermittent, it can cause some serious hiccups into the mix. And then that's, I think, is probably one of the big friction points, I would say, for people adopting an electronic logbook or like online maintenance server, is the connectivity of it.
Well, yeah, it's the initial sticker shock value.
Yeah.
I think that they can't get over, right?
Yep.
Because they're not looking at, they spent $800,000 in paper last year because it was in $2,000 increments.
Yep.
But then they see $800,000 to install this computer system. Whoa. Well, yeah, but that's $800,000 up front, and then, you know, here's our warranty, and here's how you maintain it, and here's how, if this goes wrong, you know, we teach you, you know, all these different things. It's just that sticker shock value. And say, and you know, a lot of us, right, face it, we're not working in brand new facilities. We're working in some clapped out World War II hangars that are barely holding on, and one small Texas tornado is about ready to put it into the dirt. You know, a dust devil, if you will. You know, so upgrading those facilities with new routers and relays and server and whatever else, you know, it's a big effort.
Yes.
Now, once it's in place, not so bad to keep going. But again, I think that's where most companies, you know, they go, "Oh my God, that's too. We can't do that. Why? Paper's been working for so long." Yeah, it still works. However, the operation's grown from 2 aircraft to 45. Like, it's getting to be a bit much here, you know?
Right.
We should have a better system, and we should have, you know, and then being able to audit electronic systems is so much easier.
Oh my God, yes. That's another good plus. And especially a lot of these newer, more innovative options for these online servers or electronic logbooks is they have an audit function or an audit feature where, say, certain of a specific login or even people who are designated to do these audits features, they can dig back as far down as they need to go to figure out what happened, when it happened, and whatever have you. And this works especially well with like incident reporting, right? Like, or like root cause analysis and trending. We have a problem. We don't know where it started. We don't know how intense the issue was. Something like this can really answer a lot of it. Like, how prone is this to fail? How likely is it to fail? When does it appear to fail the most? Stuff like that. And all this stuff.
It seems at 2,500 hours, the seal keeps blowing out, but the seal is rated for you know, 4,000 hours. So we're losing a lot of time. Then you can say, all right, send your supplier team down to look at the vendor. Oh, we found an issue. Boom, there's a scar against the vendor, and they fix themselves. Now, also, right, with the auditing functions, it can be as simple as, if you're an inspector or you as a lead maintainer, and you're at the end of shift and you're doing turnover and you're making sure things are squared away for what your team did during that shift. And you can even do a search function where it'll look for missed signatures.
Yes.
You know, it'll comb through and say symbol. This one requires double signature. We only have one signature. And it'll throw that out there. Or it'll say, hey, you said you removed and replaced something, but there's no part number, serial numbers of what was removed and replaced. Please, you know, so it'll flag in the system, and it won't allow you to green up the jet in the logbook, in the electronic logbook, until those discrepancies are fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can't just remember the old days of pencil whipping it?
Yep.
Those are kind of becoming a thing of the past.
Right. And I like the fact that there are such a thing as digital signatures because, and some of these are like password key protected. So you can't just like hand type someone's name in there like, oh, friggin' MVP saw this. Yeah, enter. No, like there has to be like a specific like digital key that person is assigned to, and that's how they sign things off. So that's another added security point, right? So you can't just fake the funk, depending on what.
like let's say, okay, Six is trying to throw my name in there to sign it off, but I would actually have to log into the system myself to do that buy off. He can't just put it in there,
Right.
Because you're right. With that code, it recognizes you, but the only way that code is active is if I'm actively logged in. So for that to happen, Six would have to log out. I would have to log in, or he would have to go to a different computer and log in under my username password. And if he has that, now we've got other issues to deal with, and that regarding ethical personnel issues. But yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah. And well, what was that about the digital keys and the security functions? It allows you to be able, this may be like a good bad is like, as MVP said, you got to log in to do the job or to do the sign off. When you do that login, it clocks you in to that job, so you know exactly like how many man hours or how many maintenance hours are being spent on a plane, right?
Yeah, you have to like go in and start the job.
Yeah,
right.
So,
in some instances, we've always told you you're supposed to go look at the logbook first, make sure everything's squared away, whatever else. And then in there's a start job function. Not every system's this way. Some systems you just manually input the hours you work there, so it's it's going off of what's the word I'm looking for? Integrity.
Yeah.
Right. It's looking for it's just based off of individual integrity. But some of them, okay, you go in and there's a button, start job. All right, here we go. And the system's tracking all that time until you go and click, signature, and it's that particular task is bought off, and it'll track. Oh, okay, and that's another great thing too, is you can monitor as a lead maintainer for your team. Right. All right, well, Six does this job, and it takes them an average of a half an hour to do it. But every time MVP does it, there's 1.5 hours in here. What the hell is going on? Either Six is pencil whipping stuff and half-assing it, or MVP is lying and trying to gouge time.
Ooh.
And that happens, right? People, like when one place I worked, it was off the integrity, and people would put in there religiously 5 hours of overtime a day, and knowing full well they went home early, actually.
Yeah.
But because nobody was around to check them because they were on the road in the middle of the night, they do away until an audit happens. And that's how you find those kind of things. Hold on. Six takes, again, 30 minutes, but MVP takes an hour and a half. Why? Who's wrong? And then that's when as me as a leader, I'm going to come to you and go, tell me who's getting written up today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
defend yourself. Go.
Right.
And it's one of those, typically you as the lead, you're already going to know about how the average time takes. Now, if it's a brand new person, they're working by themselves, all right, first few times you can be a little lenient. But if as they get seasoned, or if they're working with somebody else and you're going, wait a minute. I know that they trained you on that. And it's a pretty simple task. It should only take you about 30 minutes. Being generous, an hour max, but you're telling me it's taking an hour and a half. So that's where you say, defend yourself. And by the way, I already know which one of you is wrong.
Right.
Yep.
Because so your thing says 2 hours, but I know for a fact I saw you in the break room for a solid 45 minutes. Something like that. So
during the time period that you said you did this job.
Right. So that, again, that's the kind of like a good bad Right. Good for you as a lead and a manager where you're trying to like really dial into like how efficient can I be and then where are these hours really working? But also bad because now it turns to like to this big brother thing, where they want to try to cut back hours or they're trying to speed up the process or, do some things to kind of shave off some seconds, off
Right.
that
Well,
clock.
and it comes down to contract bidding too. Okay, let me look at what the average hour is for maintenance, right? And so let's compile all this together. It's like, holy crap. Our labor hours are through the roof. We can't put this in the bid to the customer. They're gonna smash it right away. Because the last proposal we did to them was this much, and now that we're almost double on labor hours, we didn't increase operational pace that much, not to justify the number. We've only hired 10 new people, so why are we nearly double the labor budget?
Right.
And it's just all those kind of things.
Yeah. And I will add a little bit to that too, as far as like the labor hours and whatnot, is say like senior level management is like really cracking down on you guys. Like, hey, you guys, you're taking way too long doing this maintenance. You guys need to speed it up. You guys need to be efficient. You guys need to quit dogging and wasting time and blah, blah, blah. Because let's be real, man. A lot of upper level management people, they just see mechanics and they see like just those people who just kind of slough off, kind of drag their feet on some tasks.
They see red dollar signs popping up with a negative in front of it.
Right.
Because that's how they view you.
Yeah. And so like what another plus of this type of system, right, both electronic or online, is you can tell where the lag is coming from. And I say this because like say you had some servers or some programs, they separate the labor hours between maintenance wait time and maintenance supply time, right? So like you could say like, why are you guys taking so long? It's like, well, we're waiting forever and a day for freaking parts. Oh, really? Let's take a look, right? And they log into to the job and they see 45 minutes of labor time and then 6 hours of maintenance supply time.
Right. And they can look at the parts you ordered and say, well, we had that part in stock. So why did it take 6 hours? That's when they're going to go knocking on the supply manager's door.
Right.
Hey, man, why is it taking your team so damn long to get parts from here to there?
Yeah. And say like if it's a manning issue for a supply, that grounds like hire more freaking people, man. I need more runners. I need more supply clerks.
Yeah. If you're in that situation as a supply manager, you're going, I've been telling you this. I've submitted the risk. I've brought up the risk at all the staff meetings. I told you I need more people. And you continually tell me no. So something's going to have to give. And guess what? We have 45 aircraft we're trying to service out there with 5 people.
Yeah. It's just not going to happen. So, and that's the another big pro. As MVP stated, like that upfront price tag is what's gonna give you the gut punch, and part of that upfront price cost is the implementation of it, because you have to make sure that your system of how you operate is gonna jive with that program or that server or whatever. And then it also not only has to jive, but also has to be compliant to whatever regulations are in your region or in your area, right? So besides whatever civil authority is governing you, it also has to meet whatever local, state, and whatever requirements that you have to abide by as well, which can be a challenge. So that implementation of it not just buying the system and having it there, but also setting it up, putting it together. Because a lot of these servers, you got to populate all these different fields one by one manually. And depending on what kind of system you're using and how your outfit operates, that can take a while. And some cases, some features are not worth the squeeze. Like say, you want some features that will allow you to have pre-populated part numbers, serial numbers, or maintenance removal and installation tasks, or publications by part number and stuff like that. Like you can get real into the weeds with some of this stuff, but it might be a little too robust for your outfit, or it might just take too long of a time to dial all that stuff in. So some cases people just use like the budgetary version or the next step down from those programs, where it's just enough to run, but it's not enough to to cover all the wickets. So you kind of have like these different shortcuts to kind of bypass these issues, and making those shortcuts instead of addressing the problem or investing in more money to get those features, it's either not in the budget or it's not worth the effort to implement it into your outfit. So that's a con in itself, to go on with that price tag. So and we can say this, like with this one organization we were with, they were trying to implement a maintenance service system, and a lot of what they were offering, it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was good, but it was very complicated to what the operation was doing. So it was kind of like, yes, but not really. Like, we don't need all this extra stuff. We just needed to do this, this, and this. And
right, and you know that software developer. I mean, they have their salesman, right? They're trying to say you can do everything from, employee punch in, punch out, maintenance manual stuff, logbooks, supply chain, HR thing. Like, it can do anything and everything you want, and each of those little things cost a certain amount, right? There's the one base price package, but then there's all these things you say, I don't need really what I want is the logbook portion of it. I want to be able to track some hours, and I want to be able to order parts through it and have it tie into this existing system over here. That way maintenance only has to use this one system, and it'll tie in with the existing supply chain system, and it all works together. Yeah, we can do all that. And then, that project, went deceased at some point, and, after Six and I got moved to a new location, within that company, but then that project fizzled out somewhere. So, and from my knowledge, it never resurrected.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, good initiative, bad judgment, right, on that project's part, because like the amount of operations that was going on, it was too dynamic with too many different variables that system just wasn't able to capture, and it was able to, but it had all these extra cost features that it just wasn't worth the time or the budget.
Well, here, I'll give you the real root cause of that problem. Too many hands in the fire. They brought in too many people who all said, we want these specific things. No, we brought you in so you could learn about the system, review it, see if there's any quirks with what we're going to buy. Well, I want to do this. Yeah, we all want robots to do our job, but pound sand, pound sand. We're doing it to do this. We're doing it to streamline things within the hangar and on the flight line. We're not setting it up to where it's going to do your job for you so you can sit in your beach house and never come to work. Like, get wrecked,
Yeah. And
that's the problem with it. Too many people got their hands in it, and the poor soul that was assigned to it, the initial person who was running that was, some guy who didn't work at our flight facility. So he was just coming in and getting everybody's, and he should have just kept it a small working group and then released it and said, hey, everybody, here's what we got. There'll be training classes available soon. Sign up. No, right. And it just got too convoluted with too many people's own personal whims. And Six and I can attest as to why that happened, because at that same facility, we had 7 or 8 reports that all said the same information with different fonts and colors and formatting, because each of the people that went to in leadership all like to see it a specific way.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourselves. But that's what it was. That's how inefficiencies and everything else, and ultimately all those inefficiencies caught up with them.
Right.
But for this particular instance, talking about electronic maintenance, logbooks and such, it just got too overwhelming.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm not gonna lie.
So my suggestion to a lot of you out there listening, if you're proposing this to within your own organization, start off with the basics. You kind of know what you need right out the gate. You need be able to track maintenance electronically and possibly order parts and track hours. Great. And as your business continues to grow, or as you implement, you say, "Oh, it would be nice if we could do this in here." All right, fine. And then you bring that whoever that software developer is back, say, "Hey, we want this capability." Boom, they code it for you. You pay the bill, they install it, and you got what you need.
Right. Exactly. I would also add on to this, if you're thinking about implementing stuff like this, have like I would say three different planes. And I mean, like, have one that's like fairly brand new, so you can kind of track this like longevity wise, like how long does this trend over time. Have one that's kind of like in the middle, like it has some it's seen some salt, it has some years on its belt, and then get one that's like towards the end of its high life. And I say these because like now you can kind of gauge like these are our milestone points. Like when the aircraft or a maintenance time is at this interval or this specific duration, how is the system going to track all this stuff? Because we've also seen some where we implemented it and they only put it for the ones that were brand spanking new. Like only these brand new ones are having it. That's great. What about all these other ones? Though, like, it's cool to see numbers tick up on a board when it started at 0. But what about all these other ones that got like 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 plus mate or flight life to it? Oh, like this, like the excuses start coming out. So I would say like shop around for all these different systems and see what their suites and whatnot can offer, and then use at least 3 guinea pigs to track all this stuff. And it kind of goes without saying, make sure you have like some very knowledgeable maintainers with you to do this, so they can kind of like poke holes in the cheese to see where the problems are. Because
right, and oftentimes for these things they have what's called sandbox versions. So before the go live, you can take your small working group and then play around in the sandbox and say, okay, here's what I want to do with it. Can I do this? And you play with it and you find holes and say, wow, this works really good, or this actually wasn't what I was really thinking. Or you say, oh, okay, I actually do need it to do this other thing that I said we didn't need it to do,
Right. And that's also...
those are training sessions too, right? Getting familiarity with the system.
Yes.
Learning how to operate it. But like Six said, initially, you're probably going to want to leave the use of the system to your leads. And then they're going to, over time, OJT the rest of their personnel on how to use the system.
Right.
But it plays damage control up front, because as we know, garbage in, garbage out. So if you just say, hey, everybody, it's released, everybody can go in there and do whatever, my God, you're going to have a lot of crap.
Oh, yes. Because like I remember we had this one system that was integrated. It was like 0 training time. It was like, the system's live, it's on. Here's the instructions. Figure it out. Like,
right, yeah. Usually somebody creates a PowerPoint, sends it out. Follow this to do it. But it's like the most vague PowerPoint. It was somebody's additional duty to do it, and they're like, oh my God, I just want to be done with this project. Here you go, everybody, follow this. And you're like, this tells me nothing. Great.
Yeah. And especially with that, like, so like you run into these issues, and sometimes these instructions, they're very thick or they're very vague with some of their actions. So you start asking people like, how the hell do I do this? Oh, I don't know. Just call the help desk. I'm like, okay. And it's like this 1-800 number. Of course, that when you call this, they're not going to know what you're trying to do. They just understand like, well, is the software running? Are you having any lag time on the software? Are you getting this error message? Like, I don't know, man. Like,
I don't know if I've made it that. I don't know if I've made it far enough into the system to get an error message.
Yeah, right. So that's as MVP said, like, like give like the knowledgeable people, aka the leads, some chance to like break this thing. Like really break it in. Because if you just go live, like in my case, nobody knew what the fuck to do, and we're like, here you go. Like, all right, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So, how likely are we going to see any of this stuff happen? Like, well, to be honest, if we're being fair, it already exists because we're talking about it. There's some programs that are more suited for certain operations, but there's a good chance that a lot of major commercial airliners, like major, will probably see stuff like this probably in the next 2 years, I would say. Probably in the next 2 years. And I say this predictively because a lot of other major outfits are using this already, or some version of it already, and it's paying dividends to big time. And so picture like if you're like a medium to small size organization, or you're working with a customer with a very deep pocket, they're going to want to spend stuff like for infrastructure like this so they don't have to waste money in the long run. And as MVP and I can attest, like when it works great. And
right. Yeah. So they all work pretty good, but I will say none of them are perfect.
Yes.
So just go to that and you're going to say, well, MVP and 6 of these things are awesome. It is awesome in saving the amount of pencils and pens and paper and hunting down a logbook. It's going to save immensely in that department. But right. They all will have their own little quirks.
Yep.
It's just how it is, right? Each company tries to be unique in their own right, and just because you're unique doesn't mean you're useful.
It's like a fork with the outline of a spoon, you know?
Yeah, well, or a spoon with no hole. It's just a hoop. Like,
well, you're unique, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess, but yeah. So like, I would suggest for you guys to shop around and see what system works best for your fit. And just as MVP said, just know that you're not going to find one that's 100% perfect. But is it perfect enough? That's what I would come down to. Like, does it do the job? Does it perform as advertised with the amount of money you put into it? Right. And if the answer is yes, then hey, then walk away happy. Right.
Yeah. And like I have my own personal preference of which one I like to use. And I'll tell you, I haven't used it since 2015 or 16.
Yep.
I just, one company had it and I learned it and I really enjoyed how that system tracked, and you could print out your whole work order from it and it would have hours, costs and of parts and materials and all these things and your labor right there in a printout, or in a report. You could generate a report out of it. I went to another business and they decided to go electronic and I talked them into getting that. So I used it there. And then since then, every place I went to used a different system, and they all, to me, aren't as good as that other one. And even that other one had its own problems, specifically in tying in with the supply chain system. Like, it just never, like, you could get it there, but it was like one of the teeth in the gear was off,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
for like, like in the system, it was just one tooth off, but ultimately pretty good. Now, some of the other systems I've worked, it was one of those, like, one worked really well, talked to the supply system, but it didn't really, it was horrible trying to track hours. It would auto dump hours for whatever reason, and the system would just kill itself about once a week.
Yep.
and then the one we're currently using, doesn't tie into the supply at all. So you still have to go to a different system to order parts. And it's dependent upon the garbage in, garbage out thing, right? It's dependent upon the how good the person is using it and how thorough and in-depth they want to be. So that's what is electronic, but it's not, lack of a better term, idiot proof, right? It doesn't force you to put in all the material. All the information. If you want to just put remove panel, install panel, why did you remove the panel? And what did you do within that compartment that you took the panel off of? Remove panel, serviced oil, installed panel. How much oil? Where did you get the oil from? Like that kind of stuff. So that's why I don't like it. But does it track, information that, maintenance information, and you can access it from any location that has it? Yes.
Yeah. And
so do your research. If I don't want to give out names on here of the programs we've used, but if you're curious as to the programs you've used and you want to know our thoughts on which ones we like, best to worst, reach out to us on our Discord or social medias or whatever. We'll be happy to impart that knowledge to you from our own experience.
Right, most definitely. And again, like we see this coming very soon. In one way, shape, or form, the electronic stuff is coming. And especially with the onset of AI stuff, it's probably going to, I'd say, majority of aircraft maintenance is going to be fully electronic probably within the next 5 to 6 years. That's just how it is. Or that's just how I see it advancing.
It's going to be like iRobot or like ChatGPT, but it's going to get its own personality. All right, plane, what's wrong with you? I don't know. What's wrong with you? Oh my God, it's learned sarcasm and sassiness. Oh no.
Right. Or it starts like developing feelings like, I don't know, man. Like, another day, another dollar. How about you?
Yeah.
And
and it starts having, are you okay? I'm fine. Oh, we're going to start this again. Start what? What are you trying to start? I told you I'm fine. It'd be like dealing with your significant other some days.
Right. Like nothing's wrong. Like, oh my God, here we go.
Oh my God, here we go.
but hey, let us know what you think, right? How do you guys feel about implementing into electronic logbooks? How are your experiences have been with ones that already exist if you have worked on them? What sort of recommendations would you give for people who are trying to implement something? And again, like MVP said, like, what are your preferences? And would you like to know some of ours? Hit us up on the socials, our emails, our website. Our Discord is by far the best one to get a hold of us. And we can have all sorts of conversations of this, share some suffering about how one system, pros and cons over the next one, and so forth. Any final thoughts on anything, Mr. MVP?
Nope. Many of you, I'm sure, are using the electronic forms. But those of you who aren't, I'd highly recommend you look into it and maybe put together a little business proposal and submit it to your leadership to bring you into the 21st century.
Most definitely.
Are we in the 21st now, or are we in the 20? Still 21st?
I think so. Wow.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm off.
I'm just waiting for the robots.
I'm stuck in the Indominus era in Warhammer. So
yeah.
I'm like 41,000 years ahead of where we're at right now. Sorry, everybody nerding out on you again.
Same. Where, it's coming down to where we just believe in the warg, the warg.
I believe it. I believe it, so it is.
Red, go faster. On that note, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all on the next one. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners. With special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Eric Shaw, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockhill, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks like access to our private Discord, discounts and early access to our merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. You can further support us and show off your prowess as an aircraft specialist by visiting our shop at cancelformaintenance.com. If you like classy or rugged watches, visit our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX, the number 4MX to save 10% off your total order. If you have suggestions for the show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at cancelformaintenance.com and we'll do what we can to get both your ideas and yourself on the show. Please support us on social media like Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Please check out our new comic series on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on our comics. Let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for your support and listenership, And we will catch you all next time.